there was an article in the New Yorker that came out yesterday about Jared Leisek, and I wanted to go over it with you guys together. And I'm going to give my my former publicist view on this while we read it together. Hi everyone, Empowering True Crime, Alex here. I've been covering the Jared Leisek case since November, since allegations were first made and charges were pressed against Jared Leisek for child R against his cousin. And before we dive in, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you subscribe and let's be the empowering voices so that we can empower true crime survivors and their stories. Now, I've been following AWP like many of you since the Kylie Rodney case. And before that, I'd been watching some of their videos. So I was a subscriber. I became a member after Kylie Rodney. And then once the allegations came out, and all this stuff started surfacing about Jared's background, I started getting interested and started covering the case itself. So I just really perused this article. I didn't really read it. So I'm going to read it with you guys, and I'm going to give some, let's say some like true crime analysis, and then also some feedback as a communications media expert, former publicist. Okay. So let's begin. Okay, so this is in the New Yorker, which is a magazine. It's tends to really focus on more middle class, upper middle class, professional audience. It leans left, but it's generally a reliable source for information. So just so that you get that context here. All right, how an amateur diver became a true crime sensation. Jared Leisek carved a lucrative niche in the YouTube sleuthing community. Then the sleuths came for him. So right there, the title in itself. Now remember, I haven't read the entire article, so I don't know what the analysis is going to be. But to me, it sounds like it sets Jared up as a hero, and then when it says the sleuths came for him, it almost sounds like then he's a victim. So that's my sense just from reading the title. So or the headline. That's really interesting. Okay, so it says here, Leisek's company, Adventures with Purpose, works to solve cold cases by searching for missing bodies underwater. Illustration by Clement Thoby. When Carrie Mae Parker didn't show up for her son's 6th birthday party in Hunt County, Texas in 1991, her family was puzzled but not entirely surprised. Parker was young and had a turbulent life, and they assumed she'd appear eventually, but she never did. Parker's daughter, Brandy Hathcock, was 5 at the time. She and her 2 siblings had spent time in foster care. Later, they moved in with their grandfather. The household was chaotic, fractured by abuse. I hadn't heard the term intergenerational trauma until pretty recently. But as soon as I heard it, I knew, okay, that's exactly what I've experienced, Brandy told me. Brandy was initially led to believe that her mother had abandoned the family, but as she got older, she began to reconsider. Maybe Parker hadn't left her children. Maybe something had happened to her. Her relatives shared their own ideas, cinematic theories involving drug deals gone wrong, Mexican cartels, crooked cops, and a vast county-wide conspiracy. The uncertainty was like living with a ghost, Brandy said. I wanted to give up hope because that kind of hope is so heavy. I didn't want to carry it anymore, but I couldn't put it down. When Brandy was in her early 20s, she and her aunt, Patricia Gagger, tried to fill in the gaps left by local law enforcement, which they said had done little to find Parker. Gagger had informed police in a neighboring county of Parker's disappearance in 1991, but Hunt County had no record of it until 2010, when Brandy filed a missing persons report. The local sheriff's office then began investigating the case. A few years ago, George Hale, a public radio reporter from Dallas, produced a podcast on Parker's disappearance. The program zeroed in on her ex-boyfriend, who, according to local gossip, had dug a large hole on the grounds of his family's septic business around the time she vanished. But the show ended with no conclusive answers. I really thought I would go to my grave not knowing what happened to her, Brandy said. Then in December 2020, Brandy's husband showed her a video he'd seen on YouTube. It was made by a group called Adventures with Purpose, volunteer salvage divers who investigated cold cases by searching for cars in lakes and rivers and shared their exploits with millions of YouTube followers. Brandy spent the evening binge watching their videos, including one about Nicholas Allen, a North Carolina teenager who had disappeared a few months earlier, and whose submerged vehicle and body had been recovered by AWP divers. The video showed Allen's mother, Judy Riley, standing on the shore of a muddy river, sobbing. I've known he was here. I've known, and I've begged, and I've asked, and today you guys got me my answers, she said in the video. This was the third case that AWP had helped solve since the group was founded 2 years earlier by Jared Leisek, an Oregon entrepreneur. Brandy had often wondered whether the reason that her mother and her car had never turned up was that they were underwater. That evening, she sent out AWP a Facebook message. I'm hoping to find out how you determine which missing persons cases to work, or you work. My mother and her car have been missing without a trace since 1991. 2 months later, a handful of men from AWP showed up in Hunt County. Leisek, a restless man in his mid-40s, stepped into a small inflatable boat and cruised alongside the causeway that spans Lake Tawakoni, which was on the route to Parker's father's home. He scanned the lake bed with sonar for hours with another diver, Sam Ginn. Eventually, they spotted an upside-down car. Ginn squeezed into a dry suit and ducked under the surface. When he popped up, he seemed frustrated. I can't see nothing, he said. I'm ridiculously cold. But he'd managed to pry off a piece of the car's body. It was pale blue, the color of the Buick that Parker had been driving when she disappeared. Then Leisek went into the water, returning with a bumper. When Gager saw it, she began to weep. Leisek also retrieved a section of a door panel. It had a Smurf decal stuck on it. As a child, Brandy's brother, Brian, loved the Smurfs. In the resulting video, Ginn tells him, this is more than likely put there by you when you were a kid. Parker's family stood at the water's edge, accommodating their new reality. It seemed that Parker hadn't run off or been murdered, but that she had gotten into an accident and her car had sunk in the lake, trapping her. Leisek kept diving, attaching chains to the vehicle. It was dark by the time a tow truck hauled part of the dripping car onto shore. It was Parker's Buick, but her remains weren't inside. Leisek, his hair still damp, shook his head, visibly disappointed. Unfortunately, today, he told the camera, we have the answers as to where Carrie is at. We just don't yet have Carrie home. In the video, which now has more than 3 million views, he adds, thank you for being with us, and if you've not done so, please do subscribe. The internet has added a new dimension to the persistent fascination with crime stories. It has made the genre participatory. Trisha Griffith, the owner of Web Sleuths, a true crime discussion forum founded in 1999, encountered the online sleuthing community in the late 1990s, when she was incredibly bored following the birth of a son. The JonBenet Ramsey case was all over the news. I read something in the paper about a 6-year-old beauty queen found dead in her basement, and I thought, well, that's a misprint. There's no such thing as a 6-year-old beauty queen. So I got on the internet to check it out, and then I was hooked, Griffith said. On web forums and discussion boards, strangers pooled their expertise to analyze Ramsey's death in far greater depth than the nightly news had. The participants might include a nurse who could offer opinions about Ramsey's injuries, someone who purported to have insider information about her family, and a paralegal who knew how to parse court filings. These days, the patchwork group of Facebook detectives, crime commentators, self-trained DNA analysts, and curious onlookers has come to be known as a true crime community. It has helped solve cases and brought attention to wrongful convictions. After a formerly homeless man who won the lottery was murdered, posters on Web Sleuths helped find his killer. It has also been an engine of misinformation, vitriol, and harassment. Redditors identified a missing student as a suspect in the Boston Marathon bombing, and his family was hounded relentlessly. It turned out that he had died by suicide. When Griffith purchased Web Sleuths in 2004, it was a snake pit, she said. Foreign members, angry when others didn't agree with their pet theories, often turned their detective skills on one another. People would be like, I know where you live. Screw you, I know where you live. Griffith Institute, okay. Let's just put it out there, okay? I'm just going to say this right now. Doxing people is not, it's against rules of almost every single social media platform. And if you ever threaten to put out that information, it could be seen as harassment. So don't doxing means putting out people's contact information, their address, any information like driver's licenses or social security numbers or phone numbers, anything like that. Okay? Don't do it. Griffith instituted content policies, no name calling, no unfounded rumors, and the tenor of discussions improved. But elsewhere on the internet, the moderation was often less strict. Griffith was particularly concerned by what she saw on YouTube, where users could build a brand by discussing dramatic subjects with variable adherence to the truth. When the COVID lockdowns left people stuck at home, hungry for drama, the true crime community grew in size and intensity. There were also always rumors and crazy stuff going around. But nothing like today, Griffith told me. People are just accusing people of murder in these videos, and it spreads like wildfire. Because you can make money, it's maddening. Okay, yes, I agree with this. I think even if, of course, people have speculation and theories, but let's just be really careful about how we present this stuff and how we say it, right? As a true crime creator, and also as people in the comments making all their speculative commentary. Also, there's just interesting. There is an entire subgenre of the true crime community that what they do is they discuss other people's channels, other YouTube creators' channels. So that's another interesting. I try to stay away from that. I sometimes watch it, but I don't like to cover it. I don't like to be involved in any of that. And frankly, I'm like, let's get right to the news. Why am I going to cover somebody else making the news, right? I just find that a little strange, but that's just me. When Jared Leisek founded Adventures with Purpose in 2018, he didn't intend to solve cold cases. At the time, Leisek was a web marketer with 2 bankruptcies on his record, looking for his next opportunity. For fun, he pursued high adrenaline hobbies like powered paragliding. For edification, he enjoyed self-help inflicted business books and seminars, like Rich Dad Poor Dad and Anything by Tony Robbins. His first experience of the viral potential of crime stories came when he was hired to help produce videos for a YouTuber known as Patty Mayo, who played a bounty hunter capturing fugitives in a staged, partially scripted series. Mayo's videos, which are designed to look like reality TV, have been viewed more than 1 billion times. Leisek came up with the phrase Adventures with Purpose by using a business name generator. He thought the name sounded catchy, like something people would want to be a part of, but he wasn't sure what the adventures or the purpose would be. Actually, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he came up with the name before he came up with what the adventures or the purpose would be. Leisek first attempted to build his YouTube channel around powered paragliding, but it was difficult to capture good sound while the glider's motor was running. Then he came across a channel devoted to underwater treasure hunting. Since he was already scuba certified, he decided to give it a go. He assumed that the videos were staged and planned to do the same. That's an interesting point. I went to a yard sale, got a bunch of antiques, and I'm getting ready to put them in the water, he told me. But before I do, let me just get in and do a river float and see what I can find. And it was just like, there's all my content right there. Leisek enlisted his wife and one of his daughters to film him as he submerged himself in the lakes and rivers of Central Oregon and came up with phones, watches, and sunglasses. Although he did his best to make these activities sound like exciting escapades. Found 2 iPhones and a baby octopus while diving for lost valuables. His views lagged behind other diving channels. I'm doing the exact same things they are, with better filming in my opinion, he said, but I'm not gaining the traction. They'll put up a video and get 1 million views for it, and I'm getting like 3,000. Then in 2019, he found 2 stolen guns in a lake. The YouTubers really liked that part of it, seeing the possibility of crime evidence thrown into rivers and lakes. One of Leisek's former diving partners told me. Which former diving partner is that? The resulting video became the first by AWP to get more than 1 million views. In another popular video from later that year, Leisek used inflatable bags to lift a sunken vehicle from the bottom of the Willamette River and float it down to a boat ramp, where a tow truck pulled it out of the water. It was a bold stunt, and one that appealed to YouTube viewers who appreciated old cars and do-it-yourself logistics. At the time, Leisek told me only about 9% of his channel's viewers were women. Leisek began working regularly with a group of men, including Ginn, a rescue boat captain in Seattle, and Doug Bishop, a tow truck driver in Portland. They helped him locate cars underwater, pull them on shore, and power wash them to remove the river gunk. That fall, Leisek spoke with the family of Nathaniel Ashby, a young man who had disappeared a few months earlier. Ashby's phone had last pinged near a boat ramp leading into the Missouri River. Law enforcement had found multiple vehicles in that part of the river, but decided that conditions were too dangerous to remove them. Leisek offered to do the recovery free of charge. Just after Christmas, Leisek and Ginn drove that from Oregon to Missouri, where they helped recover the car from a depth of 25 feet. Ashby's body was in the front seat. The resulting video, Solved Missing Persons Case, bringing closure for Nathaniel's family, was viewed more than 10 million times. Leisek had assumed that the Ashby situation was a one-off, but the AWP inbox was quickly flooded with messages from people asking for help locating family members. Adventures with Purpose soon had a new and more compelling purpose: finding missing people, or as Leisek liked to call them, missing loved ones, underwater. Instead of hashtag scuba diving and hashtag river treasure, AWP posts were now labeled with tags like hashtag cold case and hashtag true crime. Leisek bought an RV, recruited videographers and backup divers, and began setting out on month-long road trips, stopping wherever there was a promising case. While some were small-town law enforcement agencies were eager to cooperate with AWP, which often had more resources than they did, others were more territorial. "I'm coming in as a civilian to do your job. You can imagine how much that pisses off some local agencies," he said. The backstories of the people AWP searched for, missing grandma, missing veteran, missing bridesmaid, were told only in broad strokes. The videos instead lingered on the suspenseful logistics of a recovery. Currents push the boat sideways, something mysterious pops up on the sonar screen, a grappling hook snags on a log. During the inevitable emotional crescendo, a car is pulled from the water, signifying closure for the family, as Leisek often said. The video is tapping into a rising YouTube trend, the monetization of good deeds. Mr. Beast, who has the most subscribers of any individual YouTuber, is known for his performative charity videos. "I adopted every dog in a dog shelter. I gave $20,000 to random homeless people." I mean, look, I'm okay with monetizing good deeds, right? Better than monetizing bad deeds. Although most of the people AWP found seem to have died either by accident or by suicide, the group's other search videos sometimes hinted at more salacious possibilities, referencing murder weapons, a mafia hit, and a jailhouse confession. "Missing creature murdered?" One video thumbnail asked. Another read simply, "Killed?" "I hate the true crime community," Leisek told me, but he knew that intimations of crime brought views. Interesting. I hate the true crime community. Well, you're part of the true crime community, Jared Leisek. "Everything is very strategic, from the SEO side of it to the production side of it," he said. "It's a business." There were occasional missteps. The first time Leisek live streamed a car retrieval, viewers watched, horrified, as the camera captured a man's decaying body in the front seat. Oh God, thank God I didn't watch that. Leisek could be stiff when interacting with bereaved families, seeming more at home with equipment than with people. But good days felt like an episode of Scooby-Doo. "We start every day with a new mystery," Leisek said. "Who are we looking for? What were they driving? Where were they last seen? Can we solve this mystery by the end of the day? I like using my mind every day. I don't want to use the word exciting. Somebody lost a loved one, but it keeps it, not boring." Over hundreds of videos, the AWP crew developed into characters. Leisek, the dogged, exacting leader; Bishop, the tow truck driver, with his ZZ Top beard; Ginn, graying and kind-eyed, sometimes accompanied by his teenage son. AWP's annual budget swelled to more than $1 million, much of it supplied by merchandise sales. Search team beanies, What's Your Purpose t-shirts, membership fees between $5 and $100 a month for early access to videos and custom emojis, revenue from YouTube advertisements, and contributions from viewers. Fans sent gift cards for Cracker Barrel, knowing that is where the guys like to eat breakfast before a big dive. Leisek reminded viewers, most of whom were now women, that they were part of a movement. Their views and their contributions were helping to solve cold cases. During a live stream, he read a fan letter from a woman in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm married, 2 cats, full-time job. I don't typically watch YouTube. My husband does. And one day his rabbit trail of videos played one of your videos. And I happened to be watching. Since then, I've been hooked. When you have asked the question, what's your purpose in your videos, I sometimes feel like I don't have much purpose. I have a lot of health struggles, and it's challenging enough for me to work full time. I come home from work and rest a lot. I just wanted you to know that you have made an impact on me and that I want to be be a more caring individual because of your videos. Well, that's good. I think that we should all be inspired. We should consume content that is inspiring us. For most of his life, Leisek had chafed at hierarchies and rules. I don't deal well with having stupid people be in charge, he told me. Now he'd stumbled into a niche where his preference for working outside official channels seemed to be an advantage. On one search, when AWP recovered a body that several other dive teams had failed to retrieve, the local sheriff appeared impressed. The thing about me is I don't have all the red tape, Leisek told him. As civilians, the AWP crew didn't have to get clearance from higher ups, or complete a stack of paperwork, or follow standard procedures when they conducted a search. Other divers sometimes criticize the AWP for being inexperienced and prone to risk taking. As the host of a popular diving podcast reviewed a video of Leisek training Bishop, he cautioned listeners, if you think that it wasn't a big deal for them, so you can now do this and you can dive deeper and you can introduce new gear without the proper training, you're wrong. You're wrong, he added. It's extremely dangerous, and I don't advocate any of this. And I've heard other divers say the same thing. I come from the world of practice makes perfect, Leisek told me. People will say, you're not certified as a rescue diver. You're not certified to go below 60 feet. I tell them to go pound sand. AWP eventually had 18 employees. By then, the group owned 2 RVs, one parked on each coast, which towed trailers wrapped in custom AWP skins and filled with $220,000 worth of diving gear, some of it donated by sponsors. Professional videographers filmed the searches using gimbals, GoPros, and drones. On long drives, Leisek would sometimes talk about his rough childhood, how he'd temporarily dropped out of high school to work at the same mill as his father, how he'd briefly been homeless and eaten out of dumpsters, how he'd gone years without speaking to his parents. But as he told it, the story arc always bent upward toward triumph. He was still married to his high school sweetheart, he'd repaired his relationship with his parents, and his work with AWP was bringing him both money and attention. Now I'm in Rolling Stone, I'm on Dr. Phil, I'm a hero to the world, he told me. Leisek liked to dispense business and relationship advice to his team. He was always talking about mentorship, a former employee said. When people quit, he'd be like, okay, but just know, this means you're not going to receive any more of my mentorship. Traveling with the group meant adapting to Leisek's relentless pace and his no-nonsense, no-patience approach, as the employee put it. Working on a case during the day, leaving as soon as the vehicle was pulled from the water, and then driving all night to the next site. During a 6-week road trip, they might conduct 30 different searches. The rush was either to locate more loved ones or to capture more views. The 2 missions were intertwined. All right, we're about halfway done. Let me do a little stretchy stretch. Okay. After AWP located Carrie Mae Parker's car, a dive team from the Texas Department of Public Safety came to look for her body. Compared with AWP, the state's team's search seemed perfunctory. We had to watch from a very far distance, and there was no engagement whatsoever, Brandy said. We couldn't ask anybody questions. The state team left after a few hours without having found Parker. The Texas Department of Public Safety did not respond to a request for comment, but the Hunt County Sheriff's Office said the team had followed standard procedure. Leisek, incensed, returned to Lake Tawakoni along with Bishop and a handful of others. On a bright, windy morning, Leisek and Bishop stretched lines across a section of the lake marked with buoys so that they could search in a grid pattern. Within 2 days, they found a jawbone, a femur, a sacrum, and fragments of spine. Right before Leisek left, as he hugged Brandy, he dropped something into her hand. The necklace her mother had been wearing on the day she died. I know he probably broke some rules there, Brandy said. All the evidence was supposed to go to the crime lab, but it was one of the kindest things anyone has ever done for me. Brandy understood the bargain she was entering into by reaching out to the AWP. At this point, millions of people have seen me cry, and that makes me extremely uncomfortable, she said. But at the same time, that's what gets people invested. Last February, AWP was working on a case in Florida when Leisek left abruptly without explanation. A couple of months later, he filmed himself sitting in a dim living room. My heart is just like pounding out of my chest right now, he said. I'm not here to give you a polished video today. I'm simply here to talk about me, my vulnerabilities. So it's interesting because if you've been following the Jared Leisek case, the child R case with his cousin, February of last year is when the emails between his cousin and him happened. So interesting timing here. In the next hour, Leisek discussed his depression, got choked up, reminisced about past cases, and gave away merchandise. It was unclear what had triggered the video. His viewers were unsettled, but their concerns were overshadowed a few months later, when AWP's inbox was inundated with messages about a case that was unfolding in Truckee, California. Just before midnight on August 5th, a 16-year-old named Kylie Rodney had texted her mother to say that she would soon be heading home from a graduation party at a campground near Prosser Reservoir. Her cell phone pinged near the reservoir at about 12:30 a.m., then went dark. She hadn't been heard from since. Rodney was young, white, and pretty, and her absence led to fervid speculation online. Her friends, and particularly her ex-boyfriend, were pegged as suspects, with teenage partying and romantic drama magnified into motives for murder. There's something really stinking rotten, horrible going on with this Kylie Rodney case. There is a cover-up, and I believe it's among the friends, a TikToker said, citing body language as evidence. Why does your face look like that when talking about your friend you are so close with? Another asked. According to one unfounded rumor, Rodney had been killed as part of a teenage fight club. Another held that she'd been sold to a sex trafficking ring. Look, I get it. Body language, remember, communication happens. I've done another video on this before. Communication is mostly happening at a nonverbal level. In fact, 55% of all communication is nonverbal. I think it's like 30-something% is the tone of voice, and only about 7% are the actual words being used. So people might scoff at this comment, right? But that's where communication is happening. Research shows that. So it is, it's something important. That's why I always say follow your intuition, right? Because if something is just not right or something's off. Now, the thing is, let's talk about body language for a second. There's the things we might suspect the body language means, and then there might be the true meaning to it. Just to use that as an example, the ex-boyfriend, Kylie Rodney's ex-boyfriend. What if people think the body language means he's suspicious and he was involved in it? What if maybe he feels guilt because of something that happened in the way that they broke up or whatever, or that he hadn't spoken to her? I'm not trying to bring up rumors here or theories. I'm just saying there could be many sides to the same, many different points of view. So body language can be a clue. It could be a lead. It could be a tip, but it shouldn't be relied upon 100%. Previously, AWP had focused on cold cases. Becoming involved in a high-profile active investigation was an opportunity to expand its reach. Law enforcement had already searched Prosser Reservoir, but that didn't dissuade Leisek. If she's underwater, in my opinion, they just don't have the skills, he said. A team, led by Doug Bishop, set out for California. On their way to Truckee, a fan flagged them down in a Best Buy parking lot and told them that he might have a lead in the case. He worked for a roadside assistance company, he said, and he had recently been dispatched to the Truckee area to help a young couple whose car wouldn't start. The interaction had left him uneasy. The woman had seemed distressed, and he'd wondered if she'd had a rough day or was very hungover. As soon as he took the car out of neutral and put it in park, it started just fine. After he left, he called his girlfriend and told her how strange the encounter had been. It was only later, after seeing Rodney's picture on a flyer, that he wondered whether she'd actually met her around the time she went missing. The AWP team pulled into Truckee 2 weeks after Rodney disappeared. Her impish grin smiled out from thousands of flyers posted on stop signs, store windows, and bulletin boards. The crew started the search at a lake, then went to a reservoir near where the roadside assistance driver claimed he'd encountered the mysterious couple. Finding nothing, they turned their attention to Prosser Reservoir. As a cameraman filmed Bishop, he cruised the reservoir in an inflatable boat and read aloud a message from an unnamed local source who hinted that Rodney's disappearance might have a more sinister explanation. Something bad happened, and all the kids' parents told them not to get involved. I feel the same way, Bishop said to the camera. 55 feet from shore in another boat, Nick Rinn peered at a rectangular shape on the sonar screen. It looked like a boat or possibly a car. Hey, Doug, Rinn's cameraman radioed Bishop. We may have something. It's hard to tell. That day, Rodney's father and grandfather were at Prosser Reservoir with Steve Fisher, a private investigator. They had heard rumors of AWP's arrival, but no one in the group had spoken to anyone in the family. As they stood on a hill overlooking the water, Fisher's colleague called to tell them that AWP had just announced on Facebook that it had found Rodney's Honda CRV in the reservoir with her body inside. Okay. So, all right, let me finish reading here because I haven't read this whole thing, so I think maybe they're going to talk about it. Okay. I'll reserve my comments for after this paragraph. As the news spread through Truckee, there was criticism that the group had rushed to post on Facebook before officials confirmed the identity of the remains. Rodney's mother heard about what happened from a server at the restaurant where she was having lunch. She told her father, David Robertson, that she felt the group had made a spectacle of her daughter's death. AWP claims that it contacted a distant relative who lived in another state before making the Facebook post. We can't keep every family member in the loop, Leisek told me. Rodney's ex-boyfriend accused the group of clout chasing, but most people greeted the team members as heroes, lavishing them with hospitality. We couldn't pay for a meal, one of them told me. Law enforcement agencies had devoted nearly 20,000 hours to the search for Rodney, and AWP said that it had found her within an hour of putting a boat into Prosser Reservoir. Okay, so was it right for them to post that they found Kylie Rodney? I believe it was not. I think what they could have done to be respectful for everybody was said, we found a Honda CRV in the lake or in the reservoir. We've handed it over to authorities and move on from there. And that way they would have stated the facts, but saying that it was Kylie was without having her be identified is factually not correct. So I think that was wrong. And also I think because of the level of media attention on this, they definitely should have at least if they were going to tell the father and the grandfather, they should have told them to alert the family immediately before they were going to put out any information. Again, they could have totally waited. They didn't have to put out any of that the same day. There was another story that I was covering, the Alicia Navarro, who is a 14-year-old autistic girl who went missing 4 years ago, and she's reappeared in Montana. And one of the videos from the mom says that she had just found out an hour before the news went public. So at least she found out from the police. But still, we need to have a little bit more empathy and compassion for what families are going through. And so, although I don't have strong feelings about this, I do believe that this is we'll call it it's a learning lesson, right? It's a best practice that more people who are involved in missing persons, especially missing persons, should definitely consider as one of their best practices. Is holding off a little bit, not trying to make it all breaking news, because that can definitely be more traumatizing for the family involved. Leisek liked to say that AWP's job was to locate people underwater, not to determine how or why they'd ended up there. But in interviews, Bishop and Leisek insisted that Rodney's death was suspect. It doesn't add up, Bishop told Fox News Digital. It reeks of foul play. The team retreated. Now, even that statement, right, as a publicist, I would not, you can say that in a different way, right? You can say you suspect something, or maybe give a deferring opinion and say it could be this, it could have been an accident, and it also could have, like, the from all my research, from all my investigating that I've done, this seems like there could have been foul play. It could have just been said in a different way that that opens that up, but doesn't make it almost like definitive. And that's what it seemed like, and that's why a lot of people still criticize AWP, including Doug Bishop and his team, because they seem to play up this foul play angle, and and just feel like that was disrespectful to the family. The team retreated to a cabin on Lake Tahoe, where the editors rushed to put together a video. Former AWP team members told me that they fought with Leisek and Bishop over the content. Leisek characterizes it as an open discussion. It would have been better to just be like, here's the facts. We found the missing girl, one of them said. Instead, the video, which was titled How We Found Kylie Rodney, Murder or Accident, seemed designed to stoke speculation, right? You see, that's the thing. Could do it in a more respectful way, right? In it, Rin discovers Rodney's body in the car's rear cargo compartment, which he calls suspicious. I think that that's fair. I think that's definitely fair for him to say that. The video also included a lengthy interview with the roadside assistance driver about his interaction with the bizarre couple. Some viewers seized on his description of the young man accompanying the distressed woman, thin, with brown hair poking out from under a black Giants cap. The description resembled Rodney's ex-boyfriend. I was like, dang, man, this is going to throw those true crimers into a whole nother frenzy, the former team member said of the video. In an interview with a group of true crime YouTubers the following week, Leisek was coy, suggesting that more information might be released later. There's an entire other theory that it would blow your mind if I even told you, he said. Then added that the man the roadside assistance driver had seen was a positive match. The YouTubers received the news as a bombshell. Oh, wow, one said. Oh, my God, said another. So the bombshell is that the match was Kylie's ex-boyfriend, that was the person who he had seen in the roadside assistance interaction the following morning. Leisek's intimation circulated in the true crime community, where there's a tendency to assume the official story of a tragic death obscures a more horrific reality. Engagement-driven platforms thrive on drama and twists. With those kinds of incentives, it's tempting to see every death as a murder, every murderer as a serial killer, and every investigation as a cover-up. So I just wanted to make a point here that one of the reasons that I created my channel is because I was a true crime spectator, and I wanted to consume true crime for educational purposes, and I was seeing that there was a lot of drama in the mix. That's why I include the empowering part, because I think that we can not only empower survivors of true crime, but we can empower the true crime community. So that's my stance on this. But the Nevada County Sheriff's Office soon told reporters that it had ruled out Rodney's ex-boyfriend as a person of interest. At the time of the party, he appears to have been hours away in Napa Valley. Other search and rescue experts pointed out that it was not strange that Rodney was found in the back of her vehicle. The engine-heavy front end typically sinks first, and a person trapped inside will often clamber to the back to escape rising water. Fisher, the private investigator, tracked down grainy video footage from a wildfire camera overlooking Prosser Reservoir. On August 6th, around the time Rodney's phone went dead, it showed a pair of headlights moving erratically toward the reservoir, near where Rodney's car was eventually found, then vanishing. In October, the Nevada County Coroner's Office declared that Rodney's death had been an accidental drowning. The official conclusions did not dissuade everyone. Robertson said that family members continued to receive harassing, humiliating phone calls from people who believed they had a role in her death. He quit social media, changed his email address, and stopped answering the phone at the family business, a rustic lodge. The family ended up closing the lodge and moving elsewhere. Really, people? Come on! Even if you think they're involved, we should not harass people. I actually did, the other video I was mentioning about Alicia Navarro was actually The whole video was about the mom asking for privacy, especially for her daughter, who, people are starting to harass her. They're starting to knock on her door. I mean, that's an invasion of privacy. Ryan Upchurch, a comedian and country rapper with more than 3 million YouTube followers, has been a particularly persistent conspiracist, insisting variously that Rodney's family had faked her disappearance and that she wasn't even real. On Facebook, AWP acknowledged the official findings, but its murder or accident video is still up on YouTube with that same headline. It does not mention that Rodney's death has been ruled an accident. Definitely smells like a conspiracy, a recent commenter wrote. Leisek told me that he stands with AWP's handling of the case. I still feel it's foul play, he said. Last February, Leisek's cousin, Christy, was sitting in a doctor's office scrolling through Facebook when she saw a video about a group of divers who had solved a cold case. She clicked on the story and was shocked when Leisek's face appeared. They hadn't spoken in years. I thought, that cannot be him. There is no way that can be him, she told me. Christy is a pseudonym, so that's not the real name of the cousin. Christy described her family as your typical happy outer shell with that deep, dark inner circle that nobody knows anything about because everybody has just been taught to keep it quiet. When Christy was 9 or 10, she says, Leisek, who was about 6 years older, raped her. There was a lot of abuse in her family, she said, but he took it many steps further. As an adult, Christy largely avoided Leisek. I would never even go to the state of Oregon, she said. In February, after she learned about AWP, she wrote Leisek a series of furious emails. Do you feel better as a person doing things like this? All these people may be calling you a hero and saying that you're doing such great things. But we both know the truth about you. She posted on an AWP subreddit telling Leisek's fans that the man they all think is a huge hero to the community is really not as great of a man as they might think. Later that year, she pursued a prosecution in Utah. The state has no statute of limitations for sex crimes against children. Leisek was charged with 2 counts of rape of a child. Soon, the charging documents were circulating online, along with Leisek's replies to Christie's emails. In them, he referenced their shared family history of abuse and alluded to earlier apologies for actions that he vaguely referred to as the mistakes made in the past, and those actions as a youth. It is unfortunate when families like ours experience molestation. I have made peace in my life with all things bad, including this, he wrote. Thank God we are not forever judged for their actions as youth, and I'm grateful that many of us cousins acknowledged and stopped those sins which happened to us and those sins we once committed as a result of grooming. The AWP YouTube channel first of all, let's just go back to why did he respond to these emails and on his AWP email address. I think most attorneys would suggest, something like this, not engaging with any types of accusations like this. Okay, let's move on. The AWP YouTube channel quickly lost tens of thousands of subscribers, and a half dozen members, including Bishop and Rin, made videos announcing their resignations from the group. Ginn had left earlier, saying in a live stream that he was perturbed when Leisek pleaded for donations, since Ginn believed the company was flush with cash. What seemed to be people's motives also didn't sit right with me. Leisek said that Ginn's outside perceptions are not the reality. Look, there's always 3 sides of the story. His side, and the truth, right? So everyone's got their perspective on something. Patricia Gager, Carrie Mae Parker's sister, wrote on Reddit that she was triggered, almost to the point of insanity, by the news. Her sister had been the victim of sexual assault by their father, and then her bones had been found by a man who was accused of the same crime. In videos, actually, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. I didn't know that part. I hadn't seen that. So that's very, very interesting. In videos, forums, and live streams, the true crime community turned its skills on Leisek. He certainly picked the wrong audience to commit a crime in front of, didn't he? A poster wrote on Reddit, where former fans dissected Leisek's mortgage documents. I really felt like so much was hidden, or attempting to be hidden, in his language, another said. Someone house brought up Leisek's tearful video about his depression. It seems in retrospect to have been some attempt to make a public apology in hopes it would keep this quiet. So remember that he left the search in February in Florida. So maybe that was lined up and like, so when we talk about psychology, a lot of times when we feel guilty about something or we know we've done something wrong, we might lash out, we might become upset, we might deflect, we might pass on that blame onto other people. We might shame other people, right? And or maybe get sad or maybe do something like this, right? So like kind of like overcompensate in your own way to deflect the attention from you or to try to make amends with what's happened. So I'll read that again. It seems in retrospect to have been some attempt to make a public apology in hopes it would keep this quiet. Wary of running afoul of social media algorithms that suppress videos that include certain words, people refer to the alleged crime as R with a child. I do that too, although I've been reading this article, I'm saying the whole word. Or more surreally, as child grape. I don't think I've heard anyone say child grape, but maybe. Oh my God, type in the chat, type in the comments if you want me to say child grape. Child grape. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh because it's awful, but I didn't know people were saying child grape. Wow, okay, interesting. Oh, all right, let me compose myself. A member of WebSleuth sent me a file she'd assembled on Leisek, including information about his bankruptcies, the house he'd recently bought, and a 2001 Securities and Exchange Commission judgment against him for a pump and dump stock picking scheme. A judge canceled an initial hearing in Leisek's case after YouTubers attempted to live stream it. Yes, but then they did a new initial appearance. When I spoke with Leisek this spring, I assumed that he wouldn't want to discuss his legal troubles. One of the rape charges has been dropped. The prosecutor formally assigned to the case told me that he expected the case to go to trial. If Leisek is found guilty, he will be sentenced as a juvenile. Leisek said that his attorneys had advised him not to talk publicly about the case, but he seemed incapable of avoiding the subject. I have kissing cousin stuff that took place in my preteens. It is what it is. We can't change that. But there was never any rape, he told me, sounding slightly exasperated. So, by the way, in some states, kissing cousin stuff is considered a crime. So, just saying. In his telling, his cousin was a person who had always been this victim in life and never accepted that this is our childhood. When I asked Christy about this, she smiled wryly. Yeah, well, he's right about that, she said. I have never accepted that this is how our family is. Brandy said that she was extremely distraught after she learned of the allegations against Leisek. Oh, and let me just say something here, okay? So like he brings up the kissing cousins thing, right? There is an element of consent that he's saying is happening with kissing cousins. But what if there wasn't consent to kissing cousins, right? Like you can't say if you're in a corporation and you say, and somebody says, oh, yeah, we were just like kissing, but it was like no big deal, right? Like somebody can accuse you of sexual harassment or sexual assault depending on what happened. So that there needs to be, right? Like there's the issue of consent comes up here. But let's just say a 16 or 17-year-old shouldn't be kissing cousins with a 9 or 10-year-old, okay? So whatever happened, it's like he seems to be saying that it's okay or justifying it. And the other thing is, Leisek said that his attorney had advised him not to talk publicly about the case. Then why is he talking? He should make no comment at all about this or have had a prepared statement on behalf of his attorney or whatever, had a prepared statement. Brandy says she was extremely distraught after she learned of the allegations against Leisek. Just this feeling of alienation and disgust, like I can't believe I touched this person, let alone let them hug me. Being a victim of sexual abuse myself, I had a really, really hard time with that. Her disgust was disorientingly mingled with a lingering gratitude. Oh my God. Her disgust was disorientingly mingled with a lingering gratitude. His victim, she's entitled to hate him, and I hope she gets the justice she deserves. But I don't know. He's done good things for the world, she said. She'd put her AWP hat and her AWP hoodie in the back of a closet, she told me, but she couldn't bring herself to throw them away. That's that juxtaposition of having disgust for the allegations and gratitude for, for what, how he helped her family. And let me just also say something. It's a team effort, right? So it's not just, I mean, he is the front man, but it's a team effort. Somebody has to, there's multiple people involved. So it's not just him. Well, she did say AWP. So she's referring to AWP in general, not just him. In May, I went to Tiptonville, Tennessee, where Leisek would attempt to recover the body of a woman who had drowned 2 months earlier. Nearly everyone he had worked with in the past few years had distanced themselves. Ex-team members told me that they'd hoped Leisek would resign from AWP so that his scandal wouldn't taint the group's reputation. Instead, after a brief hiatus, he continued posting videos on the YouTube channel as if nothing had changed. He insisted that things were better this way. This brings it back to the authenticity of who Jared is. That may be true, but like I just said a moment ago, AWP has always been a team. There have always been, I guess at the beginning it was him by himself doing it, but the search is extremely complicated. The search and recovery is complicated, and that could never be done on his own. Leisek was traveling with a videographer named Hudson Graham, a rangy, good-natured 21-year-old acquaintance from the powered paragliding world. We met at Sherry's Country Cupboard, a homey restaurant with a Christmas tree blinking in the corner and a taxidermied albino raccoon displayed on the wall. Leisek fiddled with a seal on his diving mask as other customers stopped by the table to chat. Everyone in town, it seemed, had heard about him. Leisek leaned back in his chair, receiving well wishes and basking in his temporary small-town celebrity. "We're going to bring Grandma home," he kept saying. Several vehicles from the Lake County Rescue Squad and the sheriff's office waited at the staging ground at the edge of the Mississippi River to assist with the search, which exceeded the capacity of their small-town department. Birds dipped low over the water. Across its muddy expanse sat the wooded shore of Missouri. The grandma Leisek kept invoking was Rochelle Stanfield. She was one of those real people, her granddaughter Jamie Buffington told me. She cussed, but she prayed, and she helped people. Buffington showed me a picture on her phone. Stanfield with a fresh blue manicure, looking mischievous and pleased with herself. According to her family, Stanfield had become severely depressed after a recent illness. In March, her daughter Patty Osborne saw that she had posted goodbye on Facebook. Osborne pulled up the location tracker that she'd put on her mother's phone, and the dot hovered at the edge of the Mississippi River. Then it jolted forward. By the time first responders arrived, Stanfield's car was almost entirely underwater. A number of search and rescue teams had attempted to retrieve the car and the body with no luck. Buffington seemed surprised at the leanness of the AWP operation. "I thought it was going to be a whole group of people," she told me. On scene, Leisek was efficient and purposeful. By midday, he had located Stanfield's car and stretched lines from it to the shore, and the crowd had grown to include the mayor of a nearby county and the owner of the local Dairy Queen. Buffington was encouraged by the progress. "I'm really not trying to hate on the other people who are out there. I think they just didn't have the experience," she said. Later that afternoon, Leisek sat in the RV, giving his body a rest before diving again. His boots were caked in mud, and his weariness seemed more than just physical. "You should have a buddy diver, but at the end of the day, we're all solo divers," he said. Graham later told me that Leisek kept diving even when his air tank was alarmingly low. In Tiptonville, I've also heard, I didn't watch this video, but I've also heard that he was sick. Like he had it sounded like, or he seemed like he had a cold or something like that, which is also pretty dangerous. That's another reason why you should have a buddy diver. In Tiptonville, most people I spoke with didn't know about Leisek's rape charges. Those who did were quick to dismiss them. "That was 30 years ago," one man said, shrugging. The AW... Jeez. Okay. It just makes me laugh because a lot of people say this, like things like that don't matter. But anyway, the AWP, okay, actually, People use it when it's to their advantage, but they don't use it when it's not to their advantage, right? So those same people saying that was 30 years ago will probably blame somebody else who they don't like or maybe don't agree with about something that they did 30 years ago. So just saying. Hashtag just saying. The AWP YouTube channel has more followers now than it's ever had. Denunciations of Leisek make up one stream of content. AWP's heroics make up another. Both streams continue flowing along, largely unimpeded by the other. Leisek decided that it was time for another attempt at attaching the towing gear to Stanfield's car. He zipped up his dry suit and perched on the lip of the county's rescue boat. It motored out to the buoy, marking the vehicle's location, Leisek's legs dangling above the water. He's leading his best life, ain't he? A man watching said enviously. When the boat reached the buoy, Leisek pulled on his mask and slipped below the surface. From the sloping shore, the crowd watched the ripples above the space where he'd been, waiting for him to return, eager to hear what he'd found down in the murk. Published in the print edition of the August 7th, 2023 issue with the headline Hidden Depths. Okay. Okay, well, what do you think? I remember I had not read this in advance, so a few of my initial thoughts from reading the article. Like I said from the beginning, the headline positioned this as like we're gonna make him the hero, and then we're gonna talk about what the sleuths have against him, right? So I don't know. That positioning makes it feel a little bit like he's a victim, and I don't think that is. I don't know. I'm not aligned with that way of thinking. But I thought that it seemed very well researched. I know that I did watch a live stream yesterday where SF Steve Fisher was interviewed on the Glare, and he said, I only watched a small clip of that, but he did say in that part that he was interviewed for the article, and there were fact checkers involved. So it sounded like the New Yorker definitely had fact checkers looking up information, double checking, asking, and all that to get facts for this article. As a publicist, I've been interviewed on many different. Another, I can't remember now, was in a major magazine article. And these large magazines, like, they've got their fact checkers. You know, if you say your age, they want to see your driver's license, right? Because people lie about those things. I've had some clients tell me the wrong city that they live in, and just to make themselves look better, but they don't realize that the newspapers need to have facts, right? And some of them don't care about the facts, but some of these do, right? So that's why when we talk about at the beginning, I said like the level of accuracy with these types of magazines, this one is on the more research, more reputable, more accurate side. There's a lot of other newspapers and media sources that are completely not like that, right? Like they go more on the gossip side, even if the information is true, but it's gossip. It's not verified sources. So here they try to get fact checkers and they try to verify sources. So that's why it's important whenever we cover the news also that we understand what the news source is, so that we can have, like, you could use, like, I've used gossip type sources, like let's say the Sun or Daily Mail or something like that, that's more on the less accurate side. They might post more gossip type stuff, but they might have actual breaking news. They might have like the real news, but it hasn't been verified. So I'm not saying that's always the case, but many times it is. So those are the types of things that we look for. Okay, so with that said, I thought, they did a good job with the factual information. They did quote, so they quoted the victim. They got Jared Leisek to respond. I would have liked to have seen who from the team they quoted. I'm not sure why that person didn't feel comfortable, because they didn't really say necessarily anything bad or wrong. So it would have been good to see who they quoted on that side. And yeah, I thought it was a pretty well balanced. I didn't like the angle that they were going from at the beginning. I think was positioning it in such a way. And so that's my, I guess if I had to give a critique, that's the biggest critique that I have. Also, for those I didn't watch the video, but my understanding is that there were some mess ups with this particular grandma, the search for the grandma, and I'm not gonna say what they are, but they had to go search, like go after the body, essentially. I'll just say that in a nutshell of what happened there if you haven't watched that video. So I don't know. You tell me, what are your thoughts? What are your comments on it? Did you like the way that it was written? Did you think it was fair? Did you think it was balanced? Did you think it was unfair? Did you think that it was one way or the other? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please keep them empowering, right? Let's have a conversation. I'm okay with having people, giving differing points of view, but let's make sure we're not shaming, blaming, bullying, all of that stuff. Let's keep it empowering and have a conversation. And if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, I'd appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up. And let's be the empowering voices for survivors, missing persons, and others who don't have a voice. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, so that we can continue to be those empowering true crime, or support those empowering true crime survivors and their stories. And with that, stay safe, stay thriving, always follow your intuition, and make sure to keep it empowering. Bye for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications. Thank you.